each one of us is like a water droplet, and collectively we're the ocean. So collectively we are everything, and individually we are a perfect droplet of everything.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Onion Soup, the show where we pull back the layers of metaphysics and reality to demystify spirituality. And I'm really excited about today's guest. How are you doing today, Miss Julie?
Okay, I'm really, really good, and I'm very happy to be on your show.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. So, I was just honestly inspired by your story. So, before we dive into it, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name's Julie Holmwood. I'm based in Europe, actually in Spain, and I run health resets for people who are looking to be a bit healthier, and also provide coaching for people who equally want to be a bit healthier or who have had some kind of scary diagnosis with their health.
Wow. So, speaking about scary diagnoses, you were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and you beat it. So, tell us about
I,
that.
yeah, so I would have considered myself to be a relatively healthy person, and this is the rub, right? So we all kind of trot through our lives and we think we're doing okay, or we don't really think about it at all because we're busy, busy, busy. And so I used to go to the gym quite a lot. I used to eat, I would have said, relatively healthy. I was slim. And then in 2017, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and told that I had 3 to 6 months to live. And which is obviously quite shocking. I think even probably if you're expecting it, it's probably still quite shocking. I think it's always quite shocking to kind of hear that that your mortal experience is just about to run out. And so I class myself as quite lucky, just generally, actually. But I class myself as quite lucky because obviously what I had wasn't curable. And so everything that they were offering me was purely palliative. And for anyone who has had any kind of diagnosis or who gets one in the future, it's kind of worth bearing in mind that there are always two, there's always a big question around, is what you're offering me curative? As in, will I get better and be better forever? Or is it palliative? Are you just trying to minimize my symptoms? Are you trying to maybe extend my life by a little bit? But it's basically, it's it's not gonna give me a long lifespan either way. And because what I was being offered was palliative, it was really easy to turn it down.
Mm,
And I think maybe if you're offered something and you're told that it's curative, maybe you would be a bit more on the fence about, well, they said I'd be cured. They said I'd be
mm,
okay. So perhaps I'll try it, like I'll just do it because it's gonna make me better. Whereas when it's not gonna make you better, what have you got to lose, right? It's just like it's I've got a limited amount of time. That's what they told me. I've got nothing to lose.
mm,
And I just felt that I actually felt like my body is obviously out of balance. And what could I do? I mean, I have immense faith in my immune system and in being I have immense faith in all of the stuff that we can't see and all of the things that we can't actually touch or understand properly. And our immune system is one of those things, right? So it's like this magical thing that somehow it kind of fights off illness and disease, and we don't really understand fully how it works, but somewhere there's a bigger part of us or some kind of very, very smart a system within us or without or outside of us, which is helping us overcome things which technically we shouldn't be able to overcome. And so I have enormous faith in that, and had enormous faith in that. And so my question to myself is, how can I bring myself back into balance? How can I bring my body back into balance so that everything, the bigger part of me, can make me well?
Mm,
And how, I've obviously got in its way. I've obviously lived a life that wasn't conducive to keeping the wheels on the track. And now let me think about how I could do that. And so I thought about, what does nature give us? Nature gives us fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds and leafy greens. And so I'm just going to eat that. And I'm going to eat a lot of that, like 20 portions of fruit and veg and greens a day. That's what I'm going to have. But of course, that's a lot of stuff to chew. And, you would get a probably very, very aching face by day 3 if you were going to chew all of that. If you managed to get through days 1 and 2. And so I decided that I would juice.
mm,
And so I started juicing, and I was familiar with juicing. I already owned a juicer. Like many people, my juicer lived in the back of a cupboard and didn't come out every single day. And so my juicer started to live on the counter, and I started putting things in it every day. And I found that I could juice between 10 and 14 portions of fruit and vegetables and create half a litre or just over half a litre of juice, which I could drink really quickly and really easily. So it became really simple to have a lot of nutrition. And if you know about raw food, you'll know that the enzymes are still alive in fruit and vegetables. It's still enzyme rich, nutrient dense. And that's kind of for many of us, I believe, what our cells really need to be fit and well and healthy. And then I added in making sure that I was drinking at least 2 litres of filtered clean water every day. I did some trauma meditation and just general meditation as well. Yoga, I think movement really helps because I think energy gets stuck and trapped in our body. Breath work, because we all breathe all of the time, every day and every night, whether we're awake or we're asleep, but we're not necessarily getting enough oxygen into our systems. We're not necessarily getting enough breath.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and just trying to kind of sleep more. I didn't really have a massive choice about that because I was really tired, but more sleep and less stress.
yeah. Interesting. So looking at, first of all, curative versus palliative, I really love the way that you approach that. Because a lot of times when we go to see a physician, what they provide you is something that's more palliative. They give you a lot of medications and a lot of pills, and it's something to help ease the pain, but it doesn't address the core root of what's going on within the system, within the body.
Yeah.
So when one thing I actually have always wanted to ask someone who's beat cancer is you're given a 3 to 6 month time frame to live, and you basically cured yourself after 18 months. But when that 3 to 6 month time frame actually came around, how are you feeling?
So interestingly, and I was very fortunate, right? So, and I've heard of other people having different experiences, but I was very lucky because I was allowed to continue to go and get regular scans from the hospital, even though I wasn't taking treatment. And maybe because my prognosis was so bleak, they didn't think I wouldn't need many scans, and also because they couldn't really do much for me. And so they said that I could still go and get scans. And so because I had cancer in 3 different organs, my right kidney, my right lung, and my liver, I was really fortunate in the fact that I started to see it disappearing. So I was going for scans and it was decreasing and it was reducing and it was actually going from certain places. And so every time I had a scan, and they'd given it a name, which I didn't know at the time, but they call it scanxiety because you get really anxious before you have a scan. And you feel, I used to feel like, do I want to have a scan yet? Maybe I could do more. Maybe I could be in, like maybe I need more time before I have another scan. And so you worry about the scan, and then you worry about going to see the consultant and then giving you the results of the scan, because that's two separate things and they happen, days apart. But every single scan that I had was better than the scan before.
Right.
And so even though I still worried, and even though I still used to get anxiety, every scan was better than the one before. And so the 3 to 6 months just kind of disappeared from my head, really.
Mm,
It was my starting point, but I didn't suddenly think, oh, 3 months, I could die any day now, or 6 months, I'm past my date. I could see that actually wasn't going to be true, and that wasn't going to be my story.
mhm. Wow, I love that. That's so beautiful, honestly. So, when you were talking about starting off with changing your diet, and I've noticed that a lot of people either start there or they start with doing some type of meditation, perhaps yoga, but your progression was diet, meditation, and then yoga. Did you have someone to actually help lead you along that path, or was that just a natural progression for you?
So I keep saying I was really lucky. But again, I was really lucky. So when I was diagnosed, I was actually in the process of working with a coach for something else when I was diagnosed. And so when I was diagnosed, I didn't really tell very many people, because I didn't want to deal with other people's emotions, other people's opinions, and other people's, perspective. I didn't want people to treat me like I was sick. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, but I also didn't want people to bully me to go and do something that I didn't want to do. And so just, I only told people if they needed to know, except for I told my coach, and I told her, and my partner, obviously, but different for different reasons. But I told her, and she was amazing. The first thing that she said to me is, don't Google anything. Whatever you do not Google anything, because it will frighten the life out of you. It will just make you think even worse thoughts than having a conversation with the doctor is going to be much worse. And so she said, if you've got any ideas, or if you've got any thoughts about anything, or if anything comes to you as inspiration, tell me and I will look it up for you and I will come back with what I find. So that was really, really helpful. And I would give everyone else exactly the same advice.
Mm,
Don't Google anything, because the things that come up top of the search engine are the things that are really scary and normally quite negative. And, but I was always a meditator. I say always. From my early 20s, I was a meditator. And so I did meditation, and I, like, in my meditation, I got really clear about what I needed to do. So I say that I started with the diet, but I actually started with the meditation, which told me to start with the diet. And then I found like a trauma release meditation, which is where I really sort of talk about where I up the meditation. But
mm.
the actual kind of intuitive meditation I did right from the get go.
Interesting. When you did the trauma meditation, were there any insights that came from that? And I guess what my question is, when you were doing trauma meditation, did you find that some of that trauma kind of led to the disease outcome?
So I did a meditation. You're probably familiar with a lady called Brandon Bays.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So I hadn't been familiar with her, but my coach at the time actually was familiar with her. And she said to me, Julie, I think we should do this and I will guide you through it. So she guided me through the journey, and we did the journey together. And I had what I can only explain as a near death experience by doing that meditation. So I completely left here. I was in a place where there was kind of, it's hard to explain. there was kind of nothing, but there was everything all simultaneously. And for one moment, I was part of a cloud, which sounds like a really strange thing, but it wasn't strange. So I was just kind of part of a cloud. So I was part of something much bigger and just kind of in space. And I could see like mountains forming. I could see the world like at the beginning of this planet, and I could see like mountains forming, and I could see other things coming together, and I could see humans starting to exist and how we've evolved, and how some of that has happened. And then I could see, or not see, feel, I experienced that I was part of the ocean. And I got a really clear analogy that each one of us is like a water droplet, and collectively we're the ocean. So collectively we are everything, and individually we are a perfect droplet of everything.
Mm, wow. So with everything being a part of, and I agree with that, we're all just um, small particulates of a whole, right?
Yeah.
Right. One of my favorite analogies I came across, I think last year, was if you took an apple and sliced it up as thin as possible, is that thin slice still an apple? And you couldn't call it a whole apple, but you would still call it a piece of the apple. I thought it was interesting. But when we're talking about concepts like that, what role does synchronicities play in your life? Because you say that you were lucky, but it really just seems that these things lined up for you because you were ready to make that shift, change, and transition.
So I think synchronicity is all around all of us all of the time. And it's just whether we all have choices, don't we? At any minute in time. At any minute in time, I can choose to check my phone, turn on the TV, read a newspaper, or just sit and be, or go outside and stand and kind of look at something in nature. And at every moment in time, we've got the opportunity to do a multitude of things. And some of them will give you synchronicities, and some of them maybe less so. And so I think it's I think these things always exist for us, but sometimes we're so switched into, I'm gonna binge watch that series. And so we become so focused on that, that everything else is kind of faded into the background, and we just don't hear it, or we just don't see it, or we just don't recognize it or acknowledge it. Sometimes you just think, like, I'll just feel like, oh, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to go right now. Why are you going to do that? Like Mark was saying to me, why are you going right now? I just feel like it. I'm just going to go right now. And then I'll go and I'll bump into somebody.
Yeah.
I could have easily thought, yeah, I could go to the store right now, but I'm not going to. I don't want to. I can manage without going to the store today. I can ask Mark to go to the store. There's all these different options that are always possible and always available to me. But somewhere within me is just that, like, my energy is saying, you go to the store and you go right now.
Yeah, and it's about listening to that push and really tuning into your intuition and just do it, you know?
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. And it's, you know, recently we've been going through a process here, and it felt so challenging, so difficult. Like, the person that we were dealing with wasn't responding to us. Nothing was flowing. Everything was like, it felt like trying to push treacle uphill.
Mm,
As a result of that, I spoke to a friend and I said, I don't suppose you know anyone else that could help me with that thing, do you? And she said, oh, actually, one of my friends could do that. So would you mind introducing me? So she introduced me. I met the friend. I've ended up now having two really long meetings with the friend, who's then opened my mind and um my understanding to some other possibilities that I wasn't even aware of, that are actually much better suited to us and what we're trying to achieve. And if everything had flowed in the first instance, which I would have liked to have done because I wanted things to be easy, if everything had flowed, I never would have looked for another alternative. I wouldn't have met this other person. This whole other world of potential wouldn't have opened itself up to me. And I actually sat down, Mark and I sat down and I went, actually, we're really grateful to the person who made our life so difficult, because if things weren't as difficult as they were, we wouldn't have looked for another way. And the other way is actually a better, like a better way by far.
Wow. Just listening to your own inner voice and just kind of being like, I'm gonna go do this anyway. And even if it doesn't work out the first time, we're gonna keep trying. So when we're talking about just going forward with something that might be challenging with you or for you, how did you go from all of these things happening in your life to opening up in a retreat?
That's a really good question. So when I was diagnosed, my son was, I think, my son was, he was at 8. So at the time, I didn't tell him. And I also didn't tell any of my family because I've got an 8-year-old child and it's not very responsible to say, oh, yeah, no, I won't have any treatment for that. And so, if you take the opinion that a doctor is going to help you, which some of my family might take that view. And so I didn't tell anyone, or I didn't tell my son, I didn't tell my mother. And then this year, and I've been abundantly healthy for 6 years. And so this year I decided, like, every now and again, people would come to me, and either it's because they were part of the handful of people that knew, or somebody would come to me or somebody would kind of end up speaking to me and they'd say that they'd been diagnosed or a friend had been diagnosed. And I would be sort of torn as to, do I tell them?
Mm,
Do I want to tell my story? Is it potentially going to help somebody? Do I want to talk about it? And then I felt that if I was going to talk about it, I needed to tell my mother and I needed to tell my son, so that if I spoke about it, that they didn't find out through someone else. And so this February, I told my mother. And then at Easter, I told my son. And my son said to me, he's 15 now, and he said to me, Mummy, you've got to write a book. You have to write a book. And he said, because he's very wise, obviously, he's 15 and he knows everything, just like I did when I was 15. I knew everything too then. And so he said to me, probably not many people are going to buy your book, but one person will buy it and they will read it and it will help them. And then they will tell somebody else and it will help them. And maybe in about 10 years' time, your book will be quite popular and it will have helped a number of people. But he said, ultimately, you just need to help one person. And so I thought about that, and Mark and I were thinking about doing something. Like, we live in a fantastic place and it wins awards for being one of the healthiest places in Europe. And it's really lovely. And we live in the middle of nature and it's just a superb place to be. And so we'd been saying, wouldn't it be great to do something? We'd kind of worked on computers and laptops for quite a long time. And we felt it would be really nice to do something that was a bit more active and a bit more just to do with movement. Yeah, and just not be tied to technology all the time. And Mark's ex-military and he used to play squash at quite a high level. He beat number 28 in the world when he was at his peak. So, a very high level. And so the constant sitting down wasn't really that good for us. And so we'd been talking about what would it be like to bring people over here and what would we do with them? Would we sort of take them out walking? And I sat down to try and kind of word some content for a website. And I was like, yeah, walking, cycling. And I was like, wouldn't it be great Wouldn't it be great if people could come here and experience all of the things that I did when I was rebalancing myself, resetting my own health? Wouldn't it be great to bring people here and do that? And I got so excited and I was like typing, 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 more words, more words, more words, typing, typing, and we could do this and we do that and blah, blah, blah. And Mark had been out and he came home and I said, I've got this great idea. This is what you should be doing. And yeah, it's just gone from there.
Wow, that is beautiful. You know, one of my biggest goals is to actually build a facility that everybody can come to help with their mind, body, and spiritual journey. And I just love talking to people who were able to accomplish that, but we only have a few minutes left, Miss Julie. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience before we go?
So my big thing, I think, is I really believe quite strongly that your body is in one of two states. It's either well, in balance and well, or it's out of balance. And when you're out of balance, you can end up getting some kind of diagnosis, whatever that may be. And I really believe that for the most part, for most people, we can bring ourselves back into balance. And so I would, if anyone wants to come to Spain, I'd obviously love to see you here, but it's not even about that. It's just if you're told that there's nothing that somebody can do for you, what they're actually telling you is not that it's the end for you. It's just that they don't have your solution. And, just look somewhere else. Look somewhere else. Think about something else. Think about what does balance look like? Maybe your life and your health has got a bit out of balance. How could you bring it back into balance? And just don't believe what other people tell you. Go inside and really sit with yourself and say, what what am I feeling about this? And maybe your soul has decided that it wants to go on a bit of an adventure and it doesn't want to be stuck in the human experience anymore, and that's completely fine. But possibly it's just because you're just not in harmony with how your body needs to be. And yeah, just don't believe what anyone else tells you. All they're telling you is that they don't have your solution.
Wow, I love that. I felt my soul just clap. Yeah, they
Yes.
more I
Yes.
it's okay if when you go and get a diagnosis, if you don't agree with it, they call it a second opinion for a reason, and go do your own research. But
Yeah, and don't necessarily look for a second opinion in the same place, right? So if you go into a carpet shop and you look at all the carpets and you think, I don't like any of the carpets, don't go to another carpet shop. Go to a tile shop or go to a wood shop or, and the same with your health. If you go to a surgery or a medical establishment and they say we can't help you, don't necessarily go to a different medical establishment. Maybe go to somebody alternative, maybe go to a different kind of experience and see what answers that gives you, if any. So, I think we're so conditioned, aren't we, to just go, oh, I'll get a second opinion, but from the same kind of person. That isn't really a second opinion. That's just somebody confirming the first opinion quite often, which makes us feel a bit more worried and a bit more disempowered. And yeah, so I would look for a different opinion, but in a different place.
wow, so well said. I love that floor analogy because maybe you just don't like carpet, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's just quite often, and sticking with that analogy, you go to a different carpet shop, you're just going to find more of the same. So, and it's going to be very similar. If not identical, it's going to be very similar. But yeah, just go and look somewhere else for some other kind of second opinion. There is some amazing stuff. There are some amazing practitioners out in the world, and there are some amazing things going on outside of what we're doing. you've got people like Dr. Joe Dispenza with his stuff. I mean, you'll obviously be familiar with his work. I think he said he's helped 13,000 people now with what he's doing. You've got people like Brandon Bays, who is phenomenal. She's helped thousands of people over the years with her work. All of these things give a different perspective. They give a different view on all of it. Read the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I think is fabulous. I met him in Rome a few years ago. He is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being. And I actually told him like a very edited version of my story, and he said, "You know the secret." And it was just like, what a lovely moment that was. And so, well, you know the truth. And yeah, so just kind of start looking. There's a lot of work that's being done, that's been done, that's being done. There are a lot of people out there who will give you a different perspective on this same stuff. Anita Moorjani, very, very inspirational. And I think that you will start to feel, or certainly from my perspective, these stories made me feel very positive, and these people made me feel very positive, and they made me feel like it was possible. And I think that's really important.
So, why do you think that we're at a time period now in our society or paradigm that people are making that shift towards holistic health and alternative medicine?
So I believe that the vibration of the planet has changed. I believe that Earth's vibration has changed, and that Earth has gone from a third dimensional planet to a fifth dimension. And I think with the fifth dimension, some of us, our bodies have changed our vibrational frequency, and our bodies are actually changing their vibrational frequency. And that with that, we become much more open to being more aligned and attuned with nature and natural, rather than our third dimensional solution, which was to go to an establishment and get whatever they were giving us. I also think that there will be a number of people who preferred to live in a third dimensional reality and will therefore transition to go somewhere else, which is still in third dimensional
Mm.
existence, who don't feel aligned with the earthly experience anymore.
People talk about this shift from third dimensional consciousness to fifth dimensional consciousness. I have two questions with that. And my first question is, whatever happened to the fourth dimensional consciousness? I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that.
So the fourth dimension was people getting into self-help.
Mm,
It was people getting into self-help. It was people getting into looking for answers to things. I think we did. I think we went through that. You've probably been through it. I know that I went through it. And it was a phase, but we didn't really stay there. It wasn't, it wasn't some, it wasn't somewhere that we really, I think I was probably fourth dimensional for probably like 20 years, probably in that space of, exploring and doing all the self-help stuff. And, all those great works came out, didn't they? The Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus,
mhm.
or if you're familiar with the John Gray books, and The Road Less Traveled, and all of that stuff, which started to make us think, I've got the ability to change aspects of my life, and I can work on myself, and I can do past life regression, and I can do these different therapies. And then fifth dimension is actually I can just embody the new energy. And actually, when I'm aligned with that, things will just work out.
Wow, that was very well put. So we also talk about the shift in consciousness as far as a to earth perspective. And it's something that I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon. I love all her books. And she talks about the two earths. And she talks about how some people will choose to stay in the third D consciousness and others will shift over to 5D consciousness. From your perspective and the things that you've learned, why would someone want to stay in, I hesitate to say lower vibrational frequency because that's not necessarily what it is, but why would someone want to stay in what we would call 3D?
Because their soul has chosen that for this lifetime, because they haven't finished experiencing the things that they wanted to fully experience from that dimensional plane, because they made a contract with some other souls before they came that they would support them in that way of being, and they're still in that way of being, and so they stay with them with their collective. What I'm seeing a lot is that I'm just not very aligned. When I say very, I mean probably not at all. I'm just not aligned with the people that I knew from many years ago. Like they just kind of slide on past me. It's like, I don't know if you're experiencing that as well. And all of the people that I meet now are fifth dimension people. They're all, and the ones that aren't, they just can't stick. It just doesn't. But I think some of us came with a plan to be part of the awakening, and that was always what we came for. We came to have the experience of awakening during a living experience,
Mhm.
and to experience it while we were actually in a physical body, rather than just experiencing it because we transitioned into a different dimension without our body. And yeah, I just think some people just aren't ready. Their soul just wants to do more in a different dimension. And I was kind of tempted to say that some people are stuck, but that doesn't feel 100% true. So I've always been quite nomadic, and so I've always kind of moved around, and that has always given me the ability to meet new people and to be with a different kind of person, because every time you move, you can shift and move, and you don't have to try and shift in the community that you were in, who all expect you to behave a certain way because you know, you always came and did that on a Sunday at 2 o'clock. So why aren't you coming and doing that on a Sunday at 2 o'clock anymore? It's like there are expectations of you to be how you always were. And I think when you move around a lot, you obviously have the chance to kind of reinvent yourself with every move. And some people are they probably are actually getting some kind of call, some kind of awakening, some kind of sense, but they're blocking it out because it doesn't fit the format of the life structure that they're in, the life with the community of people that they're in. So their expectation is that they will still live a certain way, and they probably drown out that kind of little voice that says, "Go to the store now."
Yeah. Wow,
Really?
that's so interesting because I'm also very nomadic. Actually, one of my license plate literally says Dex the Nomad for Dexter the Nomad, and I lived in across the states. I was also in the service, and I do find that a lot of us whom are, I guess, on this path, on this journey, we start the journey for ourselves, and now we're in it to help others. But we tend to bounce around a lot and we tend to travel. And it's exactly like you said earlier. It's not that completely stopped being friends, I guess, with the previous people, but it would be more accurate to say we just had reason or nothing negative happened and we just don't talk anymore. They don't even pop up on my social media feed. And it's really fascinating how that works. So when somebody's going through this shift and transition, and I also love the way you expressed the third, fourth, and fifth dimension, because I would agree the fourth dimension is very much self-help. You know, what would you say to somebody who might be feeling that calling, and maybe is afraid to leave home, maybe is afraid to make that next step?
I would say that you can find like minds in the very town or the very city or the very place where you are right now by just changing some of your hobbies. A really, really good place to start is to go to a yoga class, or a meditation group. People like us are more likely to be in those kind of places, right? That's the kind, or a juice bar. Like, it would be in a juice bar. We probably wouldn't be in Starbucks. We would be in the juice bar next door. And so I think that without cutting all the people off and thinking about all of the logistics of how you move, and, I think it's really common as well to be on a slightly different timeline to your partner.
Mm.
So your partner might not be evolving at the same speed that you are, and so they might still be in 3 or 4D when you're in 5. And so there might be an element of that where you feel, well, I can't really just explain why I need to get up and move country, or, you know, take children out of school, and all of those things that kind of make us feel tired. But just start doing some slightly different hobbies. Maybe even there are lots of communities online. So people like Mike Dooley, who is the Thoughts Become Things guy, obviously your fabulous community. There are a few people who are channels, who are doing channeled material, people like Sarah Landon with the council, Sarah Kelly with the founders. So you can join some of these things from the comfort of your own home. You can become like members of online communities and online groups with people. We're about to set up our own online community actually in January, partly for this reason, because our focus is more on health, but people want to have people around them that are doing the same things or talking about the same things. And that probably isn't going to be the people that are immediately in your life right now. But yeah, I would just start looking in different places. I would start looking for email lists that I can sign up to so that I can get just, just something simple like the notes from the universe, the daily notes from the universe. That's probably one of the places that I started, not quite started, but early on in my journey, that was probably one of the things that I really loved and I felt was really supportive. Join some of these communities, go to yoga classes, go to meditation groups. You won't like all of them. Some of them won't feel very aligned. Some of them aren't actually a 5D experience. They're just a 3D version of it or a 4D version of it. And so you might think this is actually isn't for me, and just keep looking. And you will find other people. There will be people in your community, and all of a sudden you'll meet them and you'll think, these are my people.
And there's something you touched on, and oh, probably just like my last topic. You're talking about really the friction between oneself and thy partner in the sense that maybe you're resonating a little higher or resonating differently than your partner, which I think is one normal in any relationship. But when it's so great from a spiritual perspective, what do you do? Because a lot of times people get so stuck in the idea that, okay, well, I'm going in this direction spiritually and you're not there. Everything else in our relationship is fine, but spiritually, we're not connecting.
So I don't see it as like an infidelity to fill that void in some other kind of community. So, to actually be part of a community of people that are talking about soul stuff, and like the conversation that we're having now, Mark isn't in this conversation with us. I don't feel like that's an infidelity to actually be talking to you about stuff that he wouldn't necessarily want to talk to me about. And so I think, just like perhaps your partner plays football and you don't, perhaps your partner likes to play pool or table tennis and you don't. I think it's perfectly okay to have, this isn't really a hobby, but it's perfectly okay to have interests. That's a better word for it. It's perfectly okay to have interests that your partner doesn't have. And that is absolutely fine. And so, although it's slightly bigger than an interest, I would still kind of feel it's okay to spend time with the people that you feel more spiritually aligned with, even if your partner doesn't want to spend time with them, and be part of communities and kind of enjoy that bit, maybe slightly separate to your partner. And then in relation to your partner, it's just to feel gratitude for them. You might gratitude journal or think gratitude thoughts about them more than you used to when it was just a natural thing because you just thought they were fantastic anyway. And now you consciously think about all the reasons that they're fantastic. And really just kind of focus on the things that you love about them because anything, when you focus on the good stuff, it expands. If you focus on the bad stuff, it also expands. And so, unless you feel that you really are in a place where this is the point, it's been coming for a long time, and now you think it's kind of time to move on. If everything else in your relationship is good, and it's just that bit that isn't quite lined up, you'll probably find that it will start to line back up again, but it doesn't happen immediately. Like you're not both in the same place at the same time, but it will start to line back up.
Mhm. Very well
And so
said.
it's just waiting for those two things to come together.
Yeah, because I feel that that's most often the case. A lot of times, just because one person might be on a different, for sake of argument, spiritual vibration than the other, that doesn't mean the other person won't get there. And when that true love is there, when you have that true connection with your partner, it's okay if there's a little lag, you know? So they're lagging a little bit, perfectly fine. They'll catch up, and it's not a race.
And it's just, in the we get really hooked up into time in the minutiae of, oh, it's been 3 seconds, it's been 4 minutes, it's been 6 hours, it's been 12 days. In universal time, it's no time at all. And if you were meeting your partner to go to the theatre and you got to the theatre first and you waited for them for 5 minutes, you'd still be glad to see them and you'd be glad they turned up. And so it's just like that, really, isn't it? You're just there before them, you're just waiting for them to turn up. They're going to turn up. And yeah, you just maybe just someone else is outside the theatre while you're waiting, and
Yeah. No,
you'll
I
be
I
happy.
I 100% agree with that. I know with my partner and I, we resonate on so many different levels, spirituality being one of them. But there are sometimes I'm just like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll just shove this book, on your desk. If you read
Leave
it,
it
you read it. If not."
Yeah. Leave it casually there, just in case you see it.
Exactly, and usually we end up having conversations about every episode anyway. Well, Julie, I wanna thank you so much for coming on to the show, and it's honestly been a pleasure. Where can people find you if they wanna get in contact with you?
So, yeah, it's been great talking to you, Jess. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. If you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Julie Holmwood, LinkedIn /Julie Holmwood for my profile. You can come and connect with me there. But our actual health resets and our website and an email address, if you want to get hold of me via email, would be through our company, which is called Step Into Tranquility. And so it's stepintotranquility.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for coming on, and thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Onion Soup. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day. Until next time.